to the people. No justice. No justice. No justice. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the revolution.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution...
Oh snap, y'all already know what's going on. Listen, it is your boy Christian, host of bereantalk, and welcome back to another episode. You are back in Areopagus, and we are not just in Areopagus. We back in the studio with Mr. Vic Frost, and I'm back in here, fresh twist and no lineup. Yeah, that's right. I did not have time to hit up my barber tray. If you see this, I'm gonna need to give you a call later. But anyways, we are back at it with another incredible conversation with the candidates. This is the Meet the Candidate series, and we are in here today with none other than Miss Yvonne Kinston, the District 9 representative for Fayetteville, North Carolina. How are you doing today, ma'am?
Good evening. I am doing well, and it is a pleasure to be here.
It is an absolute
this evening with you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So how have you been doing today? Just overall, how's your day been going?
Day has been pretty good. I had the opportunity to see my niece today with graduation, which I'm so proud of her.
Congratulations.
So just working and had a chance to hang out with the family for a little bit and then come over here and have some conversation with you. So.
All right. Excellent. Well, I'm very, very excited. And also, so you didn't know this, but you are actually the first incumbent I've actually had on this show. So you are definitely breaking the glass ceiling with that. and I'm honored for you to be able to do that. We've had a lot go on in this city. To say that is an understatement, to say the least. And one of the things that a lot of people have been wanting and asking on both sides of the aisles, that they want transparency, they want honesty, they want this, they want that. But there's not normally a platform to do that in a space that's merely just objective. It's usually somebody has some sort of agenda, they're trying to pull some sort of information. And of course, for you all at home that watch the show, you know that's not what we do here. We just care about the truth, and we care about the facts, and we care about our people, and we care about, we care about what's genuine here. And so I'm very glad to be able to have you here. We've had a couple of conversations in the past, and I've also, had the privilege of being able to see you operate in that seat for a few years now. So my first question for you is, of course, is as far as politics go, even prior to your appointment or election to that seat, what was your political background? Was that something that you were heavily involved in growing up in the environment, or was it more of you decided to get involved one day and kind of took it from there?
So my political background, I'm going to say, started back in the actual 70s.
Really?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it did. We moved here from Germany. My father, we moved into Hollywood Heights. Okay. And at that time, they said Hollywood Heights had a reputation. But the thing of it is he saw the potential of the neighborhood, and he started the first neighborhood watch in Hollywood Heights.
Wow.
And was the official first mayor. He later decided to run for city council, and so that's where I started learning just a little bit about what was going on. Going through the years and school, watched politics, but didn't really heavily get involved. Mm-hmm. And then when I got hired at AT&T and started working with the union and understanding, how these things play a part in our everyday lives in society, realizing, we need to have our voices from the bottom up, not so much starting at the top down and that local level. And so that's what really started me getting involved in understanding, my neighborhood looks like this. What's going on with the police, what's happening. And that's what laid the foundation for it.
Wow. Okay. So that's incredible to hear, because you don't often hear of people getting into politics in a very, in that type of organic fashion. It usually seems like it's more reactionary. It's, I'm getting in because of the protests, I'm getting in because of this, that. And that's not a knock on anybody that decided to do that around that period. But it is good to see that you understood what politics is for and what it's about. It's not just about every 4 years voting for the president. It's also, like you said, what does your neighborhood look like? What does the crime rates look like? Your economics and everything else. It's right here. And then to see you engaging in that way tells me that you definitely took what you saw to heart and decided, I'm going to engage in it and make it something beautiful.
And that's exactly what I did. You know, I've always been a grassroots kind of girl in the neighborhood, working and volunteering, and just trying to figure out, you know, where can I put my hands and make a difference?
Right.
And that's really why I'm, you know, sitting in the seats. I wanted to make a difference in my community.
Okay. So then my next question to kind of follow up with that is, so you've been involved in politics at an early age. Then you decided to get into the seat. You sat in the seat. You've been able to affect change in different ways. So why run again? What is it that has made you decide, you know what, I need to stay in here because there's still work to be done? What?
And that's it, because there is still work to be done. Even though what I would say is we had 2 years in the seat, but we also lost, it feels like, almost a year because of the fact of COVID and the pandemic.
Right.
We weren't able to actually get out in the neighborhood. We weren't actually able to engage the same way we normally would have done. Okay. So there's still a lot of work that is continuing to be done. A lot of things in the background that I've been working on. And so that's the reason why I'm running, because in District 9 and through the city of Fayetteville, I believe that there are areas that still need very much attention. Citizens are asking for transparency. I think, you know, as I've been in this seat, that I have provided transparency and been able to justify any reason of why a vote has been done and made myself accessible to the district. Okay.
I like that. That is definitely something that I've heard a few people say that they have had experiences, just with you in particular, being able to know that you were easily accessible, different points of the day and night, and being able to come to you about different things that they wanted to change in their communities. And even if, worst case scenario, it didn't get done, they knew that you would at least advocate it for that thing, at the least, just because not only is that your job, but you care about the people that you're representing as well. And so my next question for you is, and you kind of led into it, which is saying that there is a lot of work to be done. So what are your main concerns for District 9, but then even Fayetteville as a whole? What are your main concerns that have been your driving force for why you wanted to get back in the race?
Well, one of the main concerns is always, as you know, public safety. You know, sometimes you'll talk to residents and they don't know who their neighbors are. You know, building that gap within neighborhoods is very important, because you need to understand who's in your neighborhood, who lives next door. Also making sure that neighbors and citizens feel comfortable communicating and interacting with our police. You know, neighborhood watch is having crime prevention there. You know, we need to be proactive and not reactive. So that's one thing, just making sure that the safety and security. In addition to that, you know, there's a lot of questions about, you know, what does council actually do? You know, the fire, police, and sanitation. A lot of calls that I get is about, you know, what happens with our sanitation department? You know, why is this still on the street? Community cleanup is very, very important to me, because when you ride down the street, if you're looking at sanitation and garbage out on the road, and you know, it gives a negative perception. And for me, I think it's important that you ride around, you don't see litter. That is just something that is it's an eyesore. And every neighborhood that you go through should be nice and clean, where you can get out and walk and enjoy it. Our infrastructure, you know, I've always said that you never look at rain the same after being on council, because you're wondering, you know, is it going to flood here? You know, are improving our sidewalks, our storm drains, and our streets. So those are some of the things that are still very much on the top of my to-dos list and working through.
Okay. I love that. I love to hear that. So that kind of, I kind of want to like segue into a question that's going to kind of take us away a little bit, but it's kind of on the same topic, which is, it goes back to something I kind of mentioned earlier, but this is something that I've asked myself, but also I've had a lot of people ask me about just the council as a whole. So we've seen a lot of different things happen on council, some things that were considered controversial. We've seen some rather distasteful behavior from different members of the council at different points in time. But one of the things I wanted to ask is, even though there are a lot of questions being raised about the council, especially when it comes along the lines of integrity, my question for you is, and a lot of citizens have the same question, is why should we trust you when it feels like, and not to say that you're responsible, but when you are a part of, as I've heard different members refer to it as the family within city council, when you're a part of that and it kind of seems like you're moving as a unit and things are happening that maybe other people don't like, what would you say to the folks at home that's going to separate you from some of the distasteful behavior, if you will?
Okay. So I'm glad you asked that because, as a council, yes, you are grouped together as one. But as a representative, you have one vote while you're sitting in that seat.
Right.
And that seat's responsibility is for your district and for the city. But when, citizens refer to the council did this or the council did that, I always say, look at the individual as well. Because even though there's been a lot of things that happen within council, I believe for myself, and I'm going to separate myself for a minute, that while I was sitting in that seat and even outside in public, that I performed with integrity. If there was a question of something that may have not been easy to ask, that I did that. Even at the time that myself had some controversy, right. I got a lot of feedback that said, I would have responded different. But at any time, you have to realize people are watching.
Right.
And because people are watching, you have not only a duty, but a responsibility to perform and to be a professional.
Absolutely.
And as long as I am in that seat, that is what the citizens are going to receive.
Okay.
It is important for me to display that because our citizens have to be able to trust us in what we say. And that is important to be able to communicate that.
Okay. And I love the fact that you phrased that, I guess, so beautifully, because my next question was for you, which is a bit more specific. So we had what is now becoming the infamous resignation of former Councilwoman Ms. Tisha Waddell. And there was a lot of very provocative statements that were made in that letter. And so I've asked other candidates this before, but it's different because you are an incumbent. You were in the back rooms. You were able to see certain things firsthand that were either in that letter or even things that were outside of that. And so what were your thoughts on that, especially being that, number one, this is one of your colleagues speaking about other colleagues of yours, and it is a possibility you will have to go back to work, and you have gone back to work with them, but even now in upcoming terms, you might have to go back to work with some of these individuals. So what have been your thoughts on that?
So with me being on the Audit and Finance Committee, that's after the resignation came, that's where it initially started. We were in an Audit and Finance Committee and there was a question that was raised, what's going to happen with this resignation letter? And so it was brought to council. Council voted on it and decided to send it to ethics. It went to ethics. Ethics reached out to former Councilmember Waddell, asked her to respond, and she said basically because council sent it to ethics that it's council's responsibility. As of right now, there hasn't been any conversation. It's a standstill. Okay. But I will say, just in reading the resignation letter, going through some of the interviews, talking to other council members, there were some things I will say that I was not privileged of. Okay. I wasn't aware of. But at the end of the day, as a council member who has a responsibility to the citizens to be able to answer the questions, I can't answer the questions for something that I don't know.
Right. Okay. And I completely understand that. So my next question is, I guess, kind of along those lines. So I know that there was a vote taken as far as whether to pursue, I guess, further investigation on that matter. And being that, the results came back as what they were. So what were your thoughts on that? Do you feel like this is something that we kind of just need to kind of just let it die down? Or is it something that there was some genuine questions raised and we do need to investigate maybe via a third party or however else that needs to be done? So
when it was originally brought to council, it was asked to have a discussion.
Okay.
The first time we didn't have the discussion, so I didn't ask to bring it back. Right. When it brought back, then it was, do we send it to an outside party for investigation? Okay. Or do we, send it to ethics? My vote has always been the same, that it needs to be investigated through an outside party. I voted for that. Okay. And I still stand on that today because I want, like I said, I'm all about transparency. If it took, everybody being investigated, I didn't have a problem doing that because I knew what I did and what I stood for. But like I said, it takes 6 votes to do anything. And
Right.
Because the 6 votes weren't, received, then it was a different direction. Do the citizens deserve a right to be able to understand what happened or to relieve any doubt? Absolutely.
Right.
You want to be able to, as you said, to have transparency with anyone that's in the seat. And I think that's important because you don't want any shadow of a doubt about what you're doing or any backroom deals, because everything should be done publicly and understandable.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Well, that right there is going to conclude the first part of our discussion here, and we're going to take a quick break. But before we do that, got a very special message from our sponsor for today, Mr. Tony U. Brown, and we will be right back.
Food is harder and harder to come by, especially healthy foods that fuel body, mind, and soul. That's why the You, Me, and Us community garden exists, to improve the community through fresh organic produce. UMUS is here for our community, and our goal is to stop the food shortage all around us. In addition to food, UMUS also helps our local children on the autism spectrum with safe interaction with live animals. But we need your help. Please consider helping us by donating, volunteering, or getting involved in some way. We would love to have you. Remember, there is no community without unity, and there's no us without you and me. Visit us today at www.southernccinc.org.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for the second part, which I like to call kind of the fire round, so to speak. These are some questions where we kind of get into the real meat and potatoes of the interview, where we talk about the substance of the politics that we're engaging in. Because as we know, and something I've talked about on the show before, is that politics is a gift, or is not a gift, it is an exchange, which means that if you are giving something, if you are giving your vote, you should be getting something back in return. And so without any further ado, Ms. Kinston, there's some questions that I wanted to ask you, and I know that these are questions that you've definitely been answering a lot, and things that you've been engaging in a lot, but we're just going to jump right into it. So we'll get right into it. So my first question for you is on crime reduction. And so we've seen a massive uptick in crime on all fronts all around the nation. And I need to say that because a lot of people want to make it seem like it's a Fayetteville problem, and it's not necessarily. Like there's a national uptick in all sorts of crimes, whether it's violent crimes, whether it's petty crimes. There's a rise in it everywhere. But especially here in Fayetteville, we know that certain types of crimes stem from different environments and different economic circumstances. And so with you having already been in that seat and seeing what it takes to be able to collaborate with the police, to collaborate with citizens, and then also even working with your local neighborhood watch as well, what are your plans to help bring this wave, really, because that's what it seems like, a crime wave? How do we bring this back down and keep it under control and not just throw people in jail, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. So one of the things is, like you said, understanding what's causing the crime. Right. What's causing, is someone stealing something because they're hungry? Or, is it a domestic issue and there's an argument? Looking at those things, one of the things I've said, before is, if you have a family member who is potentially going to do something, you need to say something. Right. We don't need to wait until it gets in a heated moment to be able to do that. Knowing your community and knowing, what those needs are. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people are doing things out of desperation. Right. Is it a job that they don't have? Is it they need something and they're out here doing it? Some of the things that we've talked about, on council or that I've presented is, get the guns off the street if we can. I've presented trying to do a buyback program. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes people will say, well, I don't need this gun, but I do need food. And this was the means in order to get it. Okay. So understanding that. Also, police engagement. Our citizens need to be comfortable speaking with the police department about things that they know that could be going on at their next door neighbor's house. If there are, our teenagers need things to do to be able to be off the streets. Mm-hmm. When you're hearing about citizens engaging in activity because of peer pressure, what's causing those peer pressures. So I'm glad that we do have, the micro grant that just came out for citizens to be able to engage in. Community watch, of course, as we've said, but also looking in our community to find out, if the wages that we're paying is enough to sustain what our citizens need to live off of.
Right. And that is that's actually going against my next set of questions I was going to ask, because that economic piece is huge right now. Being that we've seen a massive uptick in the cost of living all over the place. And now you're talking about the average rent in Fayetteville is a little over $900, I believe, but minimum wage is still $7.25. We're still seeing, of course, gas is $3,000 a gallon. And we're seeing a lot of those different things. And so a lot of there's the answer of, just pick yourself up by the bootstraps and figure it out. But then there's also, well, what can our officials do to kind of help alleviate that? Is there a way that we can bring in jobs and different things? And so now we're seeing big companies come in like Amazon that are, building their or one of their factories here. So my question for you is, how do you ensure that when these big companies come in, which they are, and they will continue to, how do we ensure that when they get here, they're actually investing in the communities, that they're actually hiring people from here and not bringing 70+% of their staff from Silicon Valley or wherever else that they're bringing them from? How do we ensure that when they come here, Fayetteville is going to prosper on all fronts?
So you're right up in my alley. So as a union worker and as a union representative, one of the things is knowing those questions to ask. What is going to be your wage price point? Amazon coming in, starting off at least $15. For the city of Fayetteville is making sure that, if we're saying we're going to be a city of choice, that those employees are getting paid at least $15 per hour. I don't know how long prior to coming on council before the employees actually got a livable wage. They may have gotten 2% here and 2% the next year.
Right.
But one of the focuses that I had coming into council is looking at the wages that we're paying the citizens are paying the employees, and also looking at the wage gap, the difference compared to other municipalities, because we have to set the example. We can't allow companies to come in and think that, let's say we're going to pay just minimum wage. The cost of living is there. I mean, we have to account for it. I recently just posted something on my Facebook page that gave a scenario of a single mother, had one emergency situation, and it was a ripple effect. You can't, your rent went up, your car had a flat tire, your engine blew. And it's those situations that can cause the next steps to be homeless.
Right.
And you may be working a full-time job, but not having the resources to be able to sustain. And that's a concern, because your livable wages and your household go together.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head, because there are a lot of people that are out here that are literally one paycheck, maybe 2 paychecks away just from being homeless. And it's not because they don't want to save and do all these, financially sound things. It's just like, it's rough out here. And so, when as soon as your check comes in, you got to pay the rent, you got to pay the insurance, you got to pay this. And then, of course, like you said, you get a flat tire, or, your engine blows, or, one of your kids has got to be out because, they're sick with something, and now you can't go to work.
And you're terminated.
And now you're terminated. And now you're trying to get unemployment, but the unemployment has been backed up since 2020. So now we got an even bigger problem. So I'm glad that you address it in that manner, because it's not just about bringing jobs. It's about bringing quality jobs. So to even hear you say that, even though, I've heard different things about Amazon in the past, which is, that's debatable, but to hear that you wanted to make sure, like, hey, they're coming in here and they're paying at least $15 an hour. And there's a lot of places, like I, at one point in my life, was trying to fight just to get that, and we couldn't get it. And so to be able to hear that you're bringing in this place, and it's not $15 an hour for 2-3 people, we're talking about hundreds, maybe thousands of people that'll be able to be employed full-time with benefits and all those things that come with it. And that is family supporting income. It's not just, helping you to get by. So I like that. And I'm glad to be able to be speaking with somebody that is invested, not just because you have a stake in Amazon, but also just invested in making sure realistically people can actually afford where they're living.
Absolutely. One of the things too that I want to mention is, when we have companies coming in, the partnerships that we do with our schools and universities, they're looking for certain skill sets. So it's important that we leverage that with, our community. If they're looking for someone with a certain technical trade, that we're encamping on that information so that we have those skills that when they're looking for them, that we're able to deliver that, because that does make a difference when they're coming in, and also making sure that we can get not only $15 an hour, but more than $15 an hour, because we're already grooming, our workforce to be ready when those come in.
Okay, absolutely. I like the sound of that, Ms. Kinston. I really like the sound of that. So then my next question for you would be, especially when you're talking about in District 9, especially, along that Cliffdale area, we see a lot of businesses. We see a lot of businesses come, we see a lot of businesses go. And so my question for you is, what would be your plan, or even one of your ways that you would want to take action by helping local businesses to be able to thrive? Because as we've seen, even according to studies done by J.P. Morgan, for example, that you're talking about 65+% of small businesses just on the national scale are done between 2 to 5 years. And so when you don't, even in Fayetteville, seeing restaurants, my whole life, I've grown up here seeing restaurants come and go, this business come and go, and not really seeing those mom and pop 20+ years, 35+ years businesses stay. So what would be your plan, I guess, to either help those businesses either get the resources that they need in order to do that, or even making sure that these grants and opportunities that do sometimes go to big business, how would you make sure that the little guy, so to speak, or your next door neighbor is able to get access to those opportunities in order to build wealth, because they're going to reinvest here?
One of the things that I would say is making sure that we're doing a proper job of getting the information out. There's nothing like hearing someone say, after a deadline, that I didn't know about that. That's the worst thing that you ever want to hear, because you want to make sure that everyone has the same equal opportunity.
Absolutely.
When I hear, or when I'm out and I hear someone saying, I'm trying to get a business, I'm trying to start this. What resources are you using? Pointing them in the right direction. When we have grants available, sending them to our seed program. Do you need a business plan? What are you trying to do? What step in this are you at? We have a lot of restaurants, and I'm not knocking the restaurants, because we all like to eat.
Yes, ma'am.
But we have so much potential of ideas of people who are saying, I want to start this business, but you got to start it. That's the main thing. You got to start it. And there's plenty of, whether it's a brick and mortar, or, if it's, home shipping, however you're going to do it. But the potential of it is actually there, and the resources is here. We just need to tap into the resources to be able to do it. One of the things that I do like is the fact of Fayetteville has a lot of entrepreneurs. And because we do, we're able to capitalize on that. A lot of people say, well, women are, sometimes trying to figure out what can they do. We have a lot of women that are entrepreneurs that have childcare issues. And because they have childcare issues, they're running their business from home. And being able to do that. You may not be able to go into a brick and mortar building, but giving you those skills to be able to have a paycheck, to be able to take care of your family, and the skills to do it. I think it's important that we capitalize on those grants and put them out in the street so that people can take advantage of those. Okay, absolutely. I like that. That's a solid answer.
That is a solid answer. But so now I want to kind of get into, I guess, a little bit of the nitty gritty, because my question for you is, so Fayetteville is a very diverse city. We're all aware of that. But we have a population, of course, the Black, African American. I don't even use those terms. I use the term ADOS, which is an acronym for American Descendants of Slavery. It's not even about focusing on that period, but it's a lineage thing, because we have people coming from all over the world that do have this melanin but don't have the experience. And then, of course, when you're talking about Fayetteville, we have, the protests that we had in 2020. We have issues around the Market House. So that lineage is very visible and very real here. And one of those things, especially for the ADOS community in Fayetteville, is that we have not only some wage issues in terms of gaps, but the biggest thing that I've seen is that wealth gap, the home ownership difference, the areas where you see that most of us congregate. It's not densely black in Kings Grant. It's not densely black in Gates 4, but you'll see it on Orange Street. You'll see it on the Merck. You'll see it in a lot of different areas. And we all know and we're all aware of what those areas look like. And so what would be your plan to kind of help specifically that group kind of get a leg up? Because we're aware of a lot of the things that have happened. And even you speaking about, getting involved politically in the 70s, that being a very some people would call it volatile. Some people would call it even a very revolutionary period, so to speak. So what would be, I guess, your way of even addressing that or going forward and saying, like, yes, everybody is equal. We all lives matter, so to speak. But be able to say specifically, these people are getting stepped on the worst, and this is what we need to do about it.
So over a period of time, things happen. You may have rented an apartment from someone and you may have had some issues. But being a voice to be able to get those resources out available. Actually, this week, the city of Fayetteville just released workshops that are coming for first-time home buyers.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So they can sign up to go to the workshops, get the information on what it takes to be a first-time home buyer.
Okay.
And, to start laying that foundation to be able to look for a home. Ironically, I've been out, doing some work for my father and getting some information from him.
Okay.
Buying a home it can be very stressful. Woo! You go and you look and it's like before you even put an offer down, it's already taken.
Yep.
But if you can't even get to that point, you're already behind the ball. Mm-hmm. So, making sure that whatever it takes to clean up your credit and to get to that point where you can purchase the home. If we're bringing in the economics, you've got the jobs, you've cleaned up your record. Equal access for everybody is going to be important because the main thing that people want is a safe place to live, a place that they can recreate and raise their family, and that's important. But we have to be able to make sure that everybody is getting a share of that wealth. And to isolate any community or any race or not being able to purchase a home because of things in the past, I think it's time that we go in and we look at what the issues are and give those people a hand to be able to do that.
Right.
So, this home first-time home buyers program, please look it up and get involved and find out what it can take because it may not be as much as you think it does.
Okay. So I really like that. That is, but I feel like, and this is no disrespect, but I feel like it didn't quite answer the question because I am asking more on the specificity for that group. And the only reason I say that is because we've seen some very direct things happen. We've even seen, when you go in different parts of Fayetteville, you can see even effects of redlining, for instance, where it's at 1 minute, it's real nice and you got certain parts of Haymound that are beautiful. And then the next minute it's a halfway house and a few other things. And we know historically why those have happened. But I guess more of my question is what do we do about fixing that? Because we do have a lot of programs, especially all around the nation. We have things for first-time home buyers. We have a lot of different programs and grants. But a lot of times, especially like 2020 was a great example of this, is that a lot of these COVID grants and small business relief funds weren't even going to the people they needed to go to. Right. And so we were watching abnormal levels of foreclosures happening for ADOS, especially even in Fayetteville. And I know people personally that have experienced that who were also, ADOS as well. And then even with the businesses, the amount of LLCs that have started, and then a lot of people don't know this, that a huge portion of those didn't even make it till 2021. Right. And God only knows 2022. So how would we, I guess, make sure that such an unstable group, so to speak, is made to be able to be stable in this city? And of course, that's not to put all of that burden on you because like you said before, there's 6 votes, you have the 1 vote. But I guess what would be your way of advocating for the whole city, but also saying, hey, there is a specific group here that has helped do a lot of things. Of course, we've seen through the market house what that looks like. That has done a lot of things for the infrastructure in this city. So this is what we need to do to address that.
Being that there is resources available, I think the fact of it being is we have to make sure that people are are at the disadvantages are given those resources.
Okay.
We've got the ARPA money coming in, making sure that, the things that we're looking at as council members,
right,
where that money is going and how it's going to benefit. Okay. But you've got to have somebody there that, I'm not going to say that has their own agenda,
right,
but has the people's agenda to make sure that it's done in a right way. Because you don't want, as you said, you can go through a district and see the difference in it. And it is very obvious. I can see that within my own, district. But to make sure that it is equally done.
Okay.
And that's the importance of it, because you've got to have people that are willing, that understand what is happening and who's not getting that attention.
Okay.
And that's where the difference comes in.
Okay. So it's placing more transparency on the process as well of making sure that everyone is getting equal access to the resources and being able to engage in that.
Right. And we just did that because when you asked me the question, I answered it, but I didn't answer it initially the way that you said, well, you answered it, but we didn't get it. Right. So that's the same thing. If I asked, if you say, well, where's the money going? Okay, you can get an answer, it's going here, but is it really going where it needs to go?
Right. Okay. Understood. So I did have one last and final question for you. This is a bit of a provocative question, but number one, I understand that this is more federal legislation. So I am, in my right mind, I know I would never think that a city council representative or a mayor would be able to do this. However, we're seeing this conversation around reparations that has just been, it's growing. And with that being said, we've seen bills in California. I think it's AB 321, if I'm not mistaken. I might have that wrong. But we've seen a lot of different local municipalities try to do something about what has happened with the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. But also we realized that if we were to get to a point federally where that was something that we needed to do, a lot of these local municipalities are going to have to chip in as far as resources, as far as research to even figure out who gets what and how that would even be doled out. So my question for you is reparations in the form of restorative justice for American descendants of slavery, is that something that has your support, or is it something that you still need to kind of flesh out a little bit?
I would say it definitely has my support. There's a lot of stories that haven't been told and tapped into.
Yes, ma'am.
And because, we say we have to go back and do the research. There's plenty of research.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't know all the answers, but what we do know is there was an injustice.
Right.
And because there was an injustice, if there's a way that it can be taken care of, whether it's negotiated at a federal level, eventually it will come down to the state and to the municipalities. And with having that conversation, it's important for us to be able to say, where are we going to stand with this?
Right.
I will say that I will stand on the justice of making sure that any wrong is done right.
Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. It's about justice. That is what it's all about. And I appreciate that answer, because it's not just yes, but it's also you're explaining why. Because it's not, I've done this on the show kind of breaking it down, because I've said this many times that when we talk about reparations, I feel like the media has turned it into you're getting money because your feelings got hurt. And that's not what we experienced. We built the richest nation in the world and don't have anything to show for it. And so to be able to say, and especially because they've done reparations for so many other groups, is to say, no, you've been cutting checks for all these other people. You can cut a check for who's been here the whole time. And I appreciate your input on that. And so before we get out of here today, I did want to give you an opportunity to give you a couple of minutes to say to the folks at home, to leave them with anything, to give them your campaign information where they can go find you to support your campaign, and anything else that you're getting involved in with the community. How would they go about finding you? And what do you need the people to know before you head out?
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity. So one of the things that I want people to know is, first of all, is if you are a resident that is eligible to vote and you have not registered to vote, please make sure you register. That is important, because your decision makes the decision of who's sitting on your city council. And those decisions that the city council makes affect you directly.
Right.
So that's important, first of all. Regardless, I can't tell you who to vote. I can tell you to vote for me, but I'm just going to say, your decisions are that important. So that's my main thing. Get out and register to vote. As far as my campaign itself, I'm a grassroots kind of girl. I'm in the neighborhood. I'm, making sure that our residents are getting the voice that they need. I always said, 2 years before I ran, I started trying to figure out what the needs were. And I do believe that in this last 2 years that I have tapped into those needs, whether it's been the safety on the deadliest road, in the city of Fayetteville, if it's been signature technology for speed humps, making sure that our city employees are getting decent wages. It's important for me to be a voice. And being that voice for not only District 9, but for the citizens of Fayetteville, and being transparent with integrity is the most important thing that I can offer. And so I, will definitely ask for your support. You can call me at 910-527-3410 to volunteer, to work any campaign, to phone bank. But at the end of the day, I think that it's important that we come together as a city to be able to progress and to grow. And I believe that I am the candidate that continue to be the voice to do that.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Miss Yvonne Kinston has come to Areopagus and chopped it up with your boy. And it has been an honor, ma'am. It has been a pleasure. And hopefully we'll be able to have you back in the future. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all for us for today. So I hope you were encouraged, that you were challenged and inspired. And until you catch me out here in these internet streets again, pieces and blessings. I love y'all. We out of here.
The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.